All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Durant. I'm the president and CEO of the Food Industry Alliance of New York. And this is another of our series of member connects where we work to bring our members together to hopefully find mutually beneficial opportunities that may exist. With us today is Becca Bright with excuse me, with scale microgrids, with energy and utility costs impacting a lot of industries across the economic um, spectrum, and especially with the retail food industry. This is a very timely presentation. Um, Becca is the Business Development Associate for the East Coast Business Development Team. She helps drive new business in the Northeast and the Midwest. So we're pleased to have Becca here and to hear her presentation. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. So with that, Becca, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate the time. If I can just have your ears for the next 15 minutes or so, I'd love to explain to you what we do and how it can save you money at your grocery store, because I think that's what we're all here for, right? Reducing the bottom line. So I'll just jump right in. So I want to talk first about the why behind what Scale Microgrids is doing. So I'm sure you feel it on the individual store level, but as a broad spectrum on electricity rate trends, New York State is steadily climbing. It has been increasing over the last decade, about 23% in the commercial industry, increase in utility rates. And the projections for the next 10 years, unfortunately, don't look much better than that at a 36% rate increase. So these are, the U.S. Energy Information Administration and Wood Mackenzie. These are outside resources. This is not just Scale saying that we believe in these stats. These are outside resources proving that the commercial and industrial utility electricity rates are steadily increasing over time. And that's where Scale Microgrids comes in. Scale Microgrids is a microgrid developer. So what is a microgrid? It's an on-site energy system. So we build you a system right at your store, and we use that to provide power to your store individually. So we supplement with utility power and microgrid power, bringing you cleaner, cheaper, and more reliable power. So if you have sustainability goals, maybe you have ESG goals you're looking to hit, a microgrid is definitely a great option for that. We incorporate solar and battery storage and tons of different renewable assets that can lend toward your ESG goals. Of course, everyone cares about the economics. It's a great option to generate revenue, to reduce your electricity spend, and really just bring you more cost-effective energy. I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of our clients in the grocery and food industry care about is reducing their energy spend. I know it can be really intense with temperature control and just at your stores on the local level. So it's a great option for that. Also, microgrids are resilient energy. That means if the utility power goes out, the microgrid can kick in and sustain your operations. So if you have a utility outage, if you have a severe weather event and you lose power, the microgrid will supplement that and you can maintain your operations, keep your food cold, no product loss. It's a great option for that. We have folks in California that experience tons of outages all the time, and the microgrid stands in during those outages. So the most important thing that I want to talk about when we're thinking about an on-site energy system that incorporates multiple assets like solar power and battery storage, backup generators, I'm sure many of you have those at your store already, and we can incorporate that into the system, is how they all work together. So it's an autonomous system. You will not have to be flipping switches or even thinking about where your power is coming from and when. We have a controller software that makes all of these assets talk to one another. It's like the brains of the system, and that determines where to pull power from and when. It will determine if you're pulling power from the utility, from the microgrid, which asset of the microgrid. I'll show you a graph in a minute that better explains that. But the great thing is you can just sit back and enjoy that cheaper, cleaner, more resilient energy without a second thought. So this is a great visual for explaining how a microgrid works, where it pulls power from and when. So just to orient you on this graph, we have this max demand line, which means that is the maximum amount of power your grocery store needs to have. So if we're on the left side of the graph, you can imagine that is the very early hours of the morning when utility prices are low because demand is low on the utility grid. So we will use utility power on this left side in the morning hours. Then when we get to the daylight hours, we're producing solar power. The sun is shining, so we have solar. Everything that you see above this max demand in the center on the solar production, we take that solar power that you're not using and we push it into your battery storage. That's that neon green on the right-hand side here. During the hours of 4 to 9 p.m., we call that peak hours at the utility. That's when everybody's using their AC. There's a ton of demand on the utility grid, and so they make their prices more expensive. So in order to circumvent really high utility charges, we'll pull you off the utility and put you on the battery storage. So this is where we're getting into multiple assets being used in the microgrid. So during those 4 to 9 p.m. roughly hours, we will use all of the energy that you've stored in the battery system from the solar during the day. Then you'll see here this navy blue, that's a generator. So if you have a generator on site, we can incorporate that into the system. If you need an extra kickstart for whatever reason, we can use that. And then you see again, we repeat this utility color on the right-hand side. You can imagine those are the late hours of the night when again, there's less demand on the grid. So utility prices are lower. So we push you back onto the utility once we've depleted the entirety of your battery storage. I know that's a lot I just threw at you, but essentially what I'm trying to show is that each of these assets are being pulled from during different times of the day, and other times we are putting on utility power. So it works in tandem with the utility, and we're just looking to get you the most cost-effective power at all times. And again, that happens autonomously. You won't even notice. You won't see the lights flicker. You'll have no idea it's occurring. It's all happening through the controller, the microgrid controller. So you might be wondering, it all sounds great, more cost-effective power, but how do we get there? The very first step that Scale will do is we will create you an individualized model for your specific site. So we'll take a look at some of your utility data and we'll build you a project model to determine if it makes financial sense for you. This model is completely free. We want to make sure that the project pencils for you, that you're saving money on your energy spend, and we just take a look at the model and provide that for you and we can review it together. If you see the model and you think it looks really great, that's when we would enter step 2, which is engineering and design, where we refine the model for your site. Every system is designed just for you at that individual site. And we'll come and do a site walk, take a look at what you have at the grocery store and refine the model and move toward a contract. Number 3 is one of the most important parts. Obviously, microgrids are expensive. These types of assets are expensive. I'm sure some of you have explored at least solar, and you know that comes with a price tag. Scale Microgrids fully finances the system. That means $0 upfront for you. Sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. So you won't pay a single dollar until the system is energized. At that point, we have a microgrid service agreement. It's sort of similar to a PPA, but it's a much smaller rate than what you would have been paying to the utility if you didn't incorporate a microgrid. So at the end of the day, we're looking to save you money on your total energy spend, and you'll pay a small fee to Scale to operate the assets for you. We'll stay on as the owner and operator of the system, meaning if anything goes wrong, that's on Scale Microgrids, and we're able to do that through this financing option. So this is an example of what a battery storage system looks like in actuality. This is at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. The battery system is over here on the right. It's that white box. It typically, if you're thinking in terms of your grocery store parking lot, would take anywhere from 2 to 4 spaces. And we can work with you to find the best location at your grocery store so that we don't impact folks trying to park at the store to come shop. This is another great example of a microgrid that we did at Safeway, which is a subsidiary of Albertsons out in California. We did carport solar, rooftop solar. I'll get into the project specifics in a moment, but I think this rendering is a really great example of what a microgrid can look like in totality. So this is that case study I was mentioning with Safeway Albertsons. So at a singular store in California for Albertsons, a grocery store, we saved them over $2 million on their energy spend. These systems can be very impactful on what you're spending with the utility. We also were able to reduce their carbon emissions by 60%, which was great because they do have pretty aggressive ESG goals. And so we're helping lend toward those. And also, they have really strong resilience. They have tons of outages in California. So it was important that we could maintain their store operations, reduce product loss, and really just keep the lights on and the refrigerators running for them. So this was a really impactful project for Albertsons and something that you could expect to see at your grocery store in New York State. And we did this, you can see at the bottom, through solar, battery storage, a generator, and of course, that advanced control system that makes all of these work together in the microgrid. This is just a personal favorite project of mine because it's a bit unique. It's a cold storage facility, so they do have that temperature control need. They built their facility without going to the utility first, and when they finally went to get interconnected at the utility to get power on site, the utility put them in an interconnection queue, which just means a really long line of people who would like utility power, and they said it'll take us anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get you power to your facility, which would mean that they could not operate. So they built the whole facility. They had clients. They needed to store. It happens to be an almond storage facility, and they couldn't do that because they didn't have power. So we came in and built them a microgrid that is entirely off the utility grid. All of their operations are on the microgrid. This is definitely unique. This isn't what I would typically do for you in New York. I just think it really shows what a microgrid is capable of when we build it at this large scale. So again, it included solar power, battery storage, and a generator because they need that extra kickstart since they have no ability to take utility power. But we were still able to save them money based on what they would have been paying the utility if they were able to get power. So a really great example of what a microgrid is capable of. Typically not our usual, you will be pulling utility power as well, but a really fun project example. So we work coast to coast. Obviously, we're really jazzed about New York State, and we would love to discuss what's going on with your grocery stores. But we have a strong background in building microgrids, a ton of projects under our belt, and a really strong financial backing. I'm sure you guys have seen what's going on in the news and in policy where there is some uncertainty around the renewable industry. We feel very comfortable where we are. We are backed by EQT, which is a private equity firm that has over $250 billion in assets in management. So we feel very confident where we are despite the political climate as of now, and we are continuing to rapidly build microgrids. For example, up until today, we have saved our clients over $420 million in utility costs. So it can be really impactful at the grocery store level. That covers what I would like to cover today, but I'm really interested to hear what's going on at your specific grocery stores, and I would love to take questions. I'm going to stop the share so I can see you all. There you go.
I would just jump in and ask if you have any like examples of New York, because I assume utility rates in California and obviously they have a lot more sun than we do in New York. So, do you have any examples of installations in New York and how those have been how the financials of those?
Yeah, I can send you a couple of case studies for your review. We definitely are working in New York and New Jersey. I just happen to highlight the California projects because they're in the food industry, and some of the projects that I'm working on in New York State in the food industry, I'm not able to speak about quite yet, but I would be happy to share. We're also scaling the portfolio of Albertsons, so we're working with them on the East Coast as well. We're currently navigating that with them. So I can definitely, Christopher, send you some case studies of more relevant East Coast projects. That Gallaudet University one is in Washington, D.C. So that is an example of something on the East Coast that we've done. And that's a really massive microgrid that we built down there. It
Thanks.
sustains operations for the university and the kids that go to school there and dorm there.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Rebecca. I would also be very interested in any case studies, generic or non-identifying, if needed, just for some
Sure.
preliminary knowledge. I'd also be very interested in looking at or having one of our sites done for a project model. And I think I have the same questions that almost everyone would in the Northeast, especially, would you be able to build a large enough on-site solar panel array to support the large load of a larger grocery store? and and being part of the New York State alliance, as well as resident and where the majority of our business locations are, I see the supplemental natural gas or generation in general. You know,
Mhm.
as New York State moves to electrify, we've got a lot of concerns with how much bigger our services are going to have to be in lieu of natural gas rooftop units, and also addition of heat pumps to supplement if that becomes the route we go. And will we even be able to use natural gas generation as a form of backup or microgrid application? Um, and and again, I'm sure the model would help immensely, but you know, would we be able to look at a system that would encompass all the requirements that are going to be in New York State by 2035 or even 2030 with the reduction in natural gas systems allowed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. We definitely have our finger on the pulse when it comes to policy in New York State and New York City. And so that's something that we are considering when we build these projects. We don't have to include a generator. The examples I provided do happen to, but not all of our projects include a generator. Sometimes if we size the battery large enough, that can stand in as your backup power. A battery system is a great dispatchable set like a generator, but it doesn't have that natural gas component. So if that's not of interest to you, we can certainly avoid the natural gas generator. It's better than a diesel generator, but for sure. So yeah, we can work with you to determine what assets would be best for you at your facility.
Okay. No, thank you. And that's what we're all juggling, right, Becca? You know, I have no problem with a natural gas generator being supplemental, and the size and what maybe it can help us with. And what we do have size restrictions are space for any of this, you know, and
Definitely.
certainly see the generation, the on-site generation from natural gas, or heaven forbid I say the word diesel, but less clean, understood, but smaller than batteries, than solar panels.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about a microgrid is we can incorporate so many different assets and we can really drive toward those sustainability goals with you. I do want to also mention, just coming back to Christopher's original question, some of the projects that I'll share with you are Bowery Farming. That's in New Jersey. It's a vertical indoor farming ag situation. That's one of the projects that we've done on the East Coast, where they had over 450,000 pounds of carbon emission reductions over the course of the contract, and we saved them over $500,000. So a really strong East Coast example that I can share with you. Acme Smoked Fish, a food preparation type of facility in the heart of Brooklyn, New York City. It's another great example within your state and in the food industry. So we have tons of projects that I can share, and I'd be happy to email you the specific case studies on all of those.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any others?
Yeah, Becca, hi, Dean Holmquist. I apologize, I was late. So would you include that to everyone, the information on the East Coast?
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll also share out this presentation as well. I can actually just add a couple extra case studies in the presentation deck, and that way you can flip through them a lot easier.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, Becca, what size ranges do you scale to, from minimum size to maximum size, to really operate efficiently?
Yeah.
And are you doing anything else with the carbon credits or renewable energy credits as part of the incentive or financing package?
Those are great questions. So on the grocery store level, we actually can get a bit smaller than some of our other projects. I would be happy to explore any grocery store facility that you have. Typically, I will say if we were looking at like a warehouse situation, we would look somewhere around 50,000 square feet and up, but we can make a lot of different things work. We do projects where we have over a megawatt of solar. We do projects where we have 300 kilowatts of solar. So it really is dependent on the size of your facility, the size of your load, and I would be happy to explore any of the above with you. Your second question about RECs, that's a great question that I'd be happy to dig in with you on a project specific basis. it does get a little complicated because Scale Microgrids does own and operate the system, but it's something that we can explore together for sure.
Thank you.
Is anyone feeling the pressure of increasing utility costs in the recent years, and how are you navigating that at this time?
I can say we're feeling it and we're looking for alternatives because in many cases we missed the boat on opportunities to lock in based on the business scenario that we were working with. And we'll take any opportunity to recoup moving forward because we're a few years behind.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned earlier, the MSA cost or microgrid service agreement, that payment to scale when you have a system on your site. One of the great things about that is the escalation on that annual payment is much, much lower than the escalation rates we're seeing at the utility level. So I was talking in that first slide about how electricity prices at the utility are rising. We have worked very hard to create a more stable pricing rate with our microgrids. So you're really buying into that price stability and dependability. So that's how we're able to offer such fantastic savings. I'm sure you heard me say, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million. It's because we create this price stability aspect in our microgrid models. So that's unfortunate to hear, Frank, that you're feeling the pressure, but I'm glad that there are options out there for you to pursue.
We're hopeful.
Does anyone have a comment on if you were to experience an outage at your store, what does your product loss look like? Is there, a certain length of outage that you experience that then costs a certain amount of product loss?
I'll take it if no one else will. And I'll be as honest as possible. The product loss usually isn't a major component. It's the expense to avoid it.
Mhm.
Whether we roll a portable generator, whether we move product within the store to more secure rooms or freezers and coolers, whether we send refrigerated trucks. For the most part, I think, and I'm probably speaking for most grocers in the upstate area, barring a 95-degree day where the store is already good and humid, or at least feeling the impact of that. Most of our systems can hold product, especially if the majority of it is behind closed doors, behind reach-in doors, for at least 4 to 6 hours in most cases. You get far less time with some of the more delicate fresh products, meats, cheeses, and some produce would fall into that for sure, seafoods as well. But really it's the cost that we do or occur to avoid that potential product loss. And if we know we're going to be approaching that 4 to 6 hour range, well, we send a generator and we send a crew with it and we send extra store personnel. And then if the power comes back within 5 hours, we send them all home and we paid
Yeah.
for them to hit the road. We paid for them to mobilize. We paid for fuel to be ready. We do own multiple large portable units, but there's still a lot of cost incurred with just getting them on the road.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, if it's not product loss, the personnel and all those costs you're discussing, that can be avoided with a microgrid, which is
Yeah,
great that you can.
and certainly to not mask it, if we do get in a situation where we can't get a portable there, we can't get reefer trucks there, where it is more of a large scale outage or natural disaster, flooding, high winds, where we can't do that, well then, you're well into the 6 digits after, 8 hours of being without power.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm more than happy to keep taking more questions. I'm just cognizant of time. We have 2 minutes left, so I've sent my email in the chat, and I've also put it up on the screen here. If you would like to reach out to me, I'd be happy to chat further with any of you about your grocery stores. My email is rbright because my full name is Rebecca, but you could just call me Becca. And I'd really love to hear from you, even if you just want to explore the model, a quick chat. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. I'm happy to just explore it with you and see what we can do for you.
And just to add on to that, after this, we've recorded this presentation. We'll include it in our newsletter for the next few weeks, but we'll also send it to all attendees and to those that we invited. We'll include Rebecca's email address in there. And if you want to send us any of those case studies to include in the follow-up email, we're happy to at least start that process and send that when we send the video or the recording of this presentation. We're happy to do that. So look for that email. And Rebecca's contact info. And if there are no further questions, thank you all for attending. This was a great presentation. Thank you to Scale for doing this, and to all of you for attending. And we'll help facilitate any follow-up in either direction that you have. And we really appreciate the support. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.